Welcome everyone, my name is Dokter. I'm the Relationship Officer at Nexus, and it is one of my jobs to help connect our Nexus members with academics at university. And that involves basically if they have any knowledge gaps in their research strategy, me and my colleagues try to help them identify them and try to link them with the academics that are necessary to help fill that. So what brings me here today? So partly because of my current job, but also my previous roles, I was always very much focused on setting up large projects that very much worked interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary. So very large European projects where it was not just, for instance, industrial partners that were important, but as well academic as also public participants. And I hope to be giving you kind of a dissection of the sentence of creating impact through a transdisciplinary and borderless approach to teamwork, because it doesn't seem that much, it can seem a little bit complicated, but hopefully when we go through the slides, it'll be a little bit more easy. So first of all, I would like to discuss impact and what do I understand, but also what can we see as impact. And I think just to use a quick definition from the Cambridge Dictionary, a powerful effect that something, especially something new, has on a situation or person. So that's already a little bit vague, so we'll try and make that a little bit more pragmatic. First of all, I think it's very important to understand the different viewpoints of impact. In many ways, it is about a desired or sometimes an undesired effect that can happen when you try to implement something new. And it is important to understand how and when this becomes important for you and whether you would be satisfied. So for instance, when you see massive funding calls, whether they're UKRI or Horizon Europe focused, they'll already mention this impact that they desire, and it makes it a little bit easier, although it's still very complicated to get there. But I think when you go down a notch and you want to see how you as a company, organization, or individual researcher want to create an impact, that's a little bit more difficult. So it can be about when are you satisfied with your end result? So is it when you solve that hypothesis as an academic, or when you build that prototype, or is it when enough users have adopted your technology? And this is something that is very important to think about both upfront, so when you're writing your proposal or when you're writing your business plan, but also something very critical to evaluate once you've rounded it off, because that will give you new learning methods to be like, okay, where did it go in a different path? Where did it go well? And how can we use this for the next iteration? And it's about setting goals versus blue sky thinking. So what is a small goal? What is a big goal? And how do you get there? And as I said, are you satisfied with only one user, 100 users, 1 million users? It's important to set those goals for yourself as a company. But it's also important to understand the limits to expertise. So an important limitation to accept is that we're not capable of everything individually, and we rely on our teams, and it's not a bad thing. It's something we've relied on throughout history, and it's something that remains very important to this day. It's what allows us to, on the one hand, be very specialized, but on the other hand, still be able to cooperate with people, at least in most cases. So starting a project or a company might happen in the proverbial shed, but you're never alone. So in instances, events and people can inspire you either negatively, so you want to prove the naysayers wrong, that you're right, or positively, you might want to solve a societal challenge, or you might want to have the new best product that will compete with the major corporates out there. So you take up that challenge and you start building. And in that instance, you will be able to use the skills you already have, and you can lay that foundation down. But I think, and I really like that metaphor, at one point you'll see that you're starting to paint a wall with a hammer, which means that you'll be requiring new tools and new people to help you understand how to get to your end goal. And the more you want to grow, the more you want to develop what you're building, the more you'll see also those kind of limitations of your own expertise and of your own knowledge and skills. And you see that very often, for instance, with startups, some are very well business focused, but when it comes to developing the technology, they'll need some help from the university or other people in the direct environment that can help steer them. But it can also be the other way around. Very often you can see, for instance, companies that know how to build something technical, but they might need some advice on, okay, and how do you set up the business around it? How does taxes even work? Where do you start with your business? And it's important to get to a point where you realize that you can't do it all by yourself, but you need other people. But then how do you identify these gaps? Well, first of all, you need to have this kind of goal, this impact you want to create, this end goal where you want to go to. So you have either a strategy or a business plan. And I always try to tell companies that it's about long-term strategy and short-term planning. So, and this is always the case, whether you're a startup, scale-up, corporate, city council, public organization, researcher at a university, it basically all follows the same principles. You need to have an end goal, you need to have something that you want to achieve, and then you need to filter it down towards realism and pragmatism. So you need to operationalize it. So through filtering this, you get all these individual pieces. And these individual pieces of your business plan or strategy will be able to identify certain projects. So it can be just identifying how do you build this prototype that will in the end solve this massive problem that we have, or that can contribute to this societal challenge, or make this profit for me. And by filtering this, and looking at these projects independently, you can identify these knowledge gaps. So for instance, you're an electrical engineer, but you need help from someone else in, for instance, engineering to find sustainable, or at a different company that makes sustainable products because you want it to be as sustainable as possible. And you can only do that by filtering down, because looking at just the strategy as a whole can sometimes be overwhelming. But it can also paint an unrealistic picture, because by looking at it as something organic, that end goal, you accept that the impact, especially the further away you're looking, might be different from intended. And it gives you a time to adjust the course and to steer you in the direction you might want to prefer going in towards. So again, just focusing on the long term is not good enough. You need to hit it with a hammer to make it flat and pragmatic, so that you can work on it towards the future. And as you find those knowledge gaps, that's when you start working transdisciplinary. And I like the term. There's a lot of them. There's multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. The reason I like this is because if you look at the, let's say the dissection of the word, and you look at some of the nice examples, it admits and confronts complexity, and it challenges knowledge fragmentation so that it is not located at a single source, but that there's multiple places. As we discussed, that's what you want to see. You don't know everything. You'll need other people to help fill in these gaps. And another important aspect is that it accepts local context and uncertainty. So it shows that if you're trying to do something, take in mind the local circumstances, but also the fact that not everything may happen the way you want it to do. And it also contributes frequently towards real-world topics, and it generates knowledge that not only addresses, for instance, societal problems, but also helps with the solution. And by having this transdisciplinary team, for instance, if you're a company, not just being somebody who's very technically inclined, you want to have an accountant, you might have someone for marketing, you'll need someone for events, you'll need someone to focus on concept development. And as you grow, this grows with you. And I think one of the nice examples for this can be found when looking at the quadruple helix model. So basically, this is a nice borderless framework, and actually very logical when you think about it, about how different parties can interplay. So it's about identifying that there's society, government, academia, and business that all collaborate, hopefully in a good way, in order to develop themselves. And the interesting thing is, this works both large scale as small scale. So it works for massive projects, but even if you look at companies in an individual matter, this plays a role. For instance, if you're a small company that is just developing a product, you can be doing, looking at GDPR regulation. And this can be done by just having a lawyer in your team, but it can also be by actually engaging with the government, talking about, okay, what regulation is out there, helping to influence new regulation in order to make it practical, because that's as well important for the government as it is for you, because we want to be a progressive nation, we want to be high skilled, so it only works when we communicate and when we interact with each other. And it's the same for market research again. You want to know that people actually use and buy your product, or that if you want to implement a change, that people will accept that change and want to work with it. And you can only do that by involving the right people and learning from, okay, if we create this product or if we want to make this kind of change in regulation, how do you feel about this? What do you think will work? Would you use it or not? Getting behind that why reasoning is very important. And the same is for instance, missing knowledge. So do we know how it will look? Can we build it? Do we need to build it? Access to skills and talent is very important. Collaborating with the university will help with that. And it's the same for regulation. Of course, academics also have a say in that. And this is slowly showing how this whole map fits together. And for you as a company with your business plan, it's the same. It's the new regulation. How can I work with that and incorporate that into my business plan in order to make sure that my products adhere to everything I want to do? Have I spoken with my user groups? Have I had focus groups to see whether people will adopt my implementation? And how is that prototype going? Can we use the skills and technology at this university to help co-develop it and hopefully then be able to produce it on a larger scale and make sure that people end using it? And in this sense, it shows how important it is. And I just wanted to stop with the final slide showing Nexus because with people, because I really want to express how important it is that we're only as strong as a community, where we hopefully try and help you with implementing all of these different actors and players, bringing them together under one roof and really strengthening the Lead City Region ecosystem. So thank you.